Welcome back to Autism Live. I'm really excited because I have with me here in the studio someone that I've known, we were just talking about this, maybe for 30 years, and I'm impressed to be able to say that because he's pretty remarkable. We're talking about Glenn Casale. I've said it 38 times before we do this. No pressure, because I've known you for 30 years, right? And Glenn is the director of a new show, The Hunchback of Notre Dame, which you guys have heard me talking about for the last couple of days, and I've been waxing poetic about how much I loved it.
Thank you.
Glenn is an amazing director who has done so many things. He's a Broadway director. You guys probably know him as the director of the Peter Pan that was Kathy Rigby on Broadway, which blew all of our socks off. But you have been directing literally all over the world for the last, 20, 30 years. A lot of people look at you and say that you are the guy that Disney calls to come in when something maybe hasn't worked out quite the way they wanted it to, and you sort of reinvent the show for them. You did that with Little Mermaid and have directed how many countries have you directed Little Mermaid in?
9.
9 countries. And in different languages.
All different languages.
Which we have to talk about how you do that, because that hurts my head to even think about Glenn. And you've directed Beauty and the
Beauty
Beast.
and the Beast.
How many places?
13.
Oh my goodness. And so many other things, way too many things to mention, but some of my favorites. I loved when you directed the musical Bingo.
Oh, they're doing a revival of that. I'm in New York at Studio 54, Feinstein Below.
I loved that. Still think about that. So I laughed at one moment in that harder than I think I've ever laughed in any live show ever before. I embarrassed myself and thought they were going to take me out of the theater and I bet you know which moment that I'm talking about. Where somebody is leaving and they continue singing. I laughed until I coughed.
Outside.
I made a fool of myself because I laughed so hard and so long. So it's one of those moments you never forget. And I got to see your Peter Pan twice live, and they were both pivotal moments for me. See, I'm going to get emotional. But, and now I've gone to see The Hunchback of Notre Dame. Notre Dame? How are you? Notre Dame. And from me as an autism mom, it was a huge, huge big deal. I came with my son and my husband, and it meant so very much to me. So I want to talk a little bit about this, and then we can talk about the other stuff. But this particular production is different than, this has been done 3 times before, this musical, right? Only 3 times before, based on, the music is from the movie, the Disney movie.
And extra music, yeah.
And extra music. And maybe not the most popular Disney movie that ever came out. People either loved it or were kind of about it. I thought that it was a really beautiful movie, but I'm amazed at seeing the stage production of it, how much more it meant to me, and I think perhaps because of the choices that you made.
Yes, and I also think it's Victor Hugo's novel. If you go back to Victor Hugo's novel, it's layered with stuff, and it's just... That's the kind of thing you can do on stage. I mean, it's relevant today.
Yes.
There's, the whole reference of treating somebody who's not like you badly, and the whole thing about people looking for refuge because they're thrown out of their city. Very much like today.
Yes.
Where do we find a country that allows us to stay? The gypsies. And Hugo wrote it in the 1800s, but it takes place in 1483, and it has a lot of the French Revolution aspects to it. So if you go back to that novel, it's all there. All the thoughts are there. All the ideas are there.
Yeah.
And that's what's great about it.
Well, and one of the things I know about you is you're a brilliant storyteller.
Oh, thanks.
You really are, and you make it accessible for everyone. We've been talking about you. I don't know if your ears have been burning for the last week. Everybody that I know, we've been talking about you, and everybody's been saying wonderful things about you behind your back. No, because there is something about you. You have a kid inside you that you delight in things. That's one of the things that people have been saying. I was mentioning the other day that my mother always said about you that you were charm on legs.
Oh.
But there is I think that there is a wonderment in you that it doesn't surprise me that you create these rich stories on stage that the adults delight in, we lose ourselves in, and that the kids are right there and not only in it, but learning from it. It is that wonderment.
I think it also comes from having the job I have, that's so lucky to be able to do what I love since I was 18. And, you know, it's just going into every day and just creating and making a difference. We did cabaret this summer. Cabaret is so right on about the elections this year. And it was, you know, you're in a time where you can use theater to change people's minds, change people's thoughts, change people's idea. I have a Peter Pan running now in Tuacahn in Utah, and there's a transgender person in the lead of Peter Pan.
Glenn, you're just shaking it all up.
Shake it up, shake it up.
And really changing the world. And so let's talk a little bit about Hunchback, though, because you made a distinctive choice with this. And I'm glad to hear that you know, are also taking on the transgender thing as well. As I was sitting watching the Emmys the other night, and they were talking about how there needs to be more people who are casting transgender. And of course, as an autism mom, I was sitting there thinking, why not people of all abilities as well? Why are we not including this? But see, Glenn's already doing that. Glenn's already set the standard very high. So talk a little bit about the choice that you made with Hunchback to have a deaf actor.
I did a reading of a musical called Brindlebeast about 2 years ago, and I met this actor, John McGinty. It was about a woman who was non-hearing who fell in love with a hearing boy musical. And John did the reading for us, and then we were casting this summer for Sacramento, and he called and said, I'd like to come in and audition for Hunchback. I was like, okay, well, let's try it out. Not only did he come in, but Ali Stoker came in. She was in the last Deaf West production of Spring Awakening. She was in a wheelchair. She came in for Seussical. So it was quite an audition period, but John's audition was like I've never seen. He took control of the room. He just made us believe what he was doing like nobody else. So then we set a task going, okay, now how do we make this work in the round in 9 days?
Right.
Because that's all we have in Sacramento is 9 days.
And so we should tell people, so first you were mounting this at the Sacramento Music Circus.
Which is in the round.
In the round. And then you knew that you were going to take it from there and bring it to La Mirada, where it would be done in a proscenium theater. So that you were going to stage it once in 9 days.
9 days.
And then you had 10 days to restage it with some casting changes.
Yeah.
Amazing. I don't know how you do that at all.
Yeah.
But what were some of the considerations starting within the round in order to accommodate an actor who is deaf?
Interpreters. We had 3 in Sacramento because of the round. And one had to always be with John, one had to always be with me, and one kind of circled around and could be wherever he needed to be. But, you know, I think it was no different for me than working in different languages. Because when I'm in Moscow, I have an interpreter. When I'm in Spain, I have an interpreter. Germany, I don't speak any of those languages. So, and sometimes the whole cast doesn't speak English.
Right.
So you have to really just be able to communicate feelings, ideas, thoughts. John and I shared a lot of what internally is going on, as well as emotionally, and you know, you can work on a level. He's from Steppenwolf, so he's got all that training.
Amazing training. We have a picture of you working with John during the show, if Samantha can bring that up.
Yeah.
That it's just, you know.
And his interpreter, Tracy, she was terrific and got us through the whole thing. And we brought somebody in, like another language, like when we do Beauty and the Beast overseas, we have interpreters from each country come in and redo it into their own language. So we had an interpreter come in and teach all the sign for the last song of the show.
Yeah.
She created that language.
Amazing. Amazing. And so what you end up with, we saw the show last Thursday, and what I saw on stage was something amazing, really amazing. And if you guys look on our blog, I wrote about it because I was so moved by it. You know, I feel like I haven't seen enough theater in life, but I've gotten to see a few things. And there is something special that happens when the cast knows, great picture there. This duo, these 2 young men, blew my doors off.
Yeah.
But it was bigger than that because you had a feeling that you were at something special, and that the cast knew that they were doing something special, that a wall was being kicked down, and that it was bigger than all of us. I said at one point it was so big it like ran off the stage into the theater and out the doors and into the street. It was that big.
And it's been like that from day one. I mean, everybody's been committed to it. We had to look at it and look at the piece. I read that signing wasn't allowed in the 1400s. So the only people that could sign to him was his imaginary gargoyle friends. So that established this relationship that I could break the wall of whatever I want to do with that other character, and how they could sing for him and how they could motivate him. And then when Frollo comes in, he does no signing with Frollo.
Right. And for those of you who haven't seen it yet, so the gargoyles are there. When John, the actor who plays Quasimodo,
McGinty.
he speaks in his own voice.
The whole show.
But then when he sings, when it goes to that heightened, one of the gargoyles sings for him. And that young man, Dino, I can't remember.
No, Candace.
I said to you during the intermission, it's one of the most selfless performances I've ever seen. He gives himself wholeheartedly to singing that for him. It's a lovely performance.
Yeah, and we had a different person in Sacramento, also Jim Hogan, extremely gifted, extremely committed to it, and I think he couldn't go on. He got Phantom the tour, so he couldn't go on with us. But Dino was, he was there with us all summer, Dino, so he saw it from the beginning as we were creating it.
He took my breath away. I mean, both of them did, I have to say honestly, but I was so moved by what he did on so many levels.
And the music is so good. It's Alan
Yes.
Menken and Stephen Schwartz, who wrote
Yes.
Wicked and Beauty and the Beast and Little Mermaid. The first time the two of them have collaborated.
Amazing.
And that choir of 30 just helps elevate everything.
Absolutely. The whole cast, I mean, what you have created. But I think this is true of all of your shows, Glenn, quite honestly, that you create an atmosphere where everybody is at their best, and that they bring their best. Nothing gets left undone. Everybody brings it, and certainly John McGinty, there's nothing left at the end of that performance. He has brought it all. It was so moving to see him as a performer be able to have this tour de force and to be supported. You know, last week on the show we had some filmmakers. They're making a documentary about the gentleman with autism who invented the ribbon mic, has reinvented the ribbon mic, and the documentary covers how everybody in his life had to be there to support him in order for him to be able to do what he did, which has changed our world. And I had just come fresh from that and sat in the theater and watched all of these people who saw that John could do this, that you saw that he could do it, that the other actors saw that he could do it, and no one poo-pooed, no one apologized. It was that much better because it was John.
Yeah, and we learned a lot of that as we were going. The signing wasn't in the beginning. When we first started, I wasn't going to sign much at all. I was just going to have John talk and Jim sing or Dino sing, and that was it. And then all of a sudden, we started seeing in rehearsal how beautiful the signing is, and how, I could create this language of its own for John. It helps in the cueing, it helps in everything. And it helps him communicate with people on stage.
Absolutely.
And when he looks across stage and they're signing to him, he's connected.
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
Because he can't read their lips that far.
Yeah. And you made a choice that we would see him become Quasimodo. Why did you make that choice?
Well, it was written in the script that the congregant becomes Quasimodo. It's just how you do it is different, a little different. And I wanted you to see who he was, that the inside was beautiful and full, and then he became this. But in the inside, and at the end, I go back to it.
Yes.
So that we go back to that there's a man in there.
Yes.
So that's what I wanted to do. And I also made the ending more positive than it is, and hopeful and uplifting. It doesn't feel down at the end because it has the last scene, which is great.
It's so powerful.